Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. We can make it over anything when we focus on our liberty. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. We can make it over anything when we focus on our liberty. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. We are rising into victory, celebrating our humanity. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Yeah, we are rising into victory, celebrating our humanity. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. You say. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. You say. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. We can make it over anything when we focus on our liberty. It doesn't matter where we used to be. We're waking up and now we're breaking free. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah. Jalapeno habanero, hell yeah.
Happy Wednesday, folks. It is 12:03 my time. What time is it where you are? So glad to be hanging out with you today. Glad that you're able to make it in. As you're coming in, please remember to let us know where you're watching from and tell somebody hello in the chat. I think we have a really good conversation planned for today. Man, this has been an incredible week. Last night, I had a conversation with Volsi from Volsi Thoughts and the Black Atheist Coalition. He got to talk a little bit about the cookout and just his deconstruction journey and the things that he's doing right now, the things that his organization is doing, and the space that he's creating for Black atheist and Black non-believing content creators. So if that type of thing rings your bell, go please check that out. That we did that yesterday. All right, so let me make sure, do I have any announcements? Oh yeah, of course. Entrepreneur of Impact competition is still going on. If you want to vote for me, please do so. We had an exciting conversation with our community this week because we realized we've raised over $4,000 for Gen Youth through our participation with Entrepreneur of Impact. So it's been incredible. Welcome in, Jude. It's 10 a.m. All right, so now I know what that time difference is. Welcome in. All right, so let me see. Was that the only announcement that I have? I think so. I think that's the only thing. I feel like I'm gonna watch this later and be like, oh man, you were supposed to say this too. Like even last night when we were doing that stream, which it was still kind of early. It was like 5 something when we started on my end. I was like, oh, happy Friday. Then I was like, oh no, it's not Friday, it's Monday. And then, of course, after the stream was over, I was like, no, it's not either one of those days. It was Tuesday. So yeah, that's how easily I get those days mixed up. All right. So this conversation today is going to come from an interesting place. The topic or the title that I kind of pulled for this was knowing better begins with asking better questions. And I want to let that marinate for a little bit, okay? Knowing better begins with asking better questions. I have no notes on this, but I do have some points that I'm going to pull from an article. But knowing better begins with asking better questions. There's a popular quote that's often attributed to Maya Angelou that says, "When you know better, you do better." Right? And so then I think the question becomes, how do you know better? You know? And so knowing better begins with asking better questions. One of the phenomena, one of the plural of phenomena, we'll say it that way. Yeah, I think it's phenomena. One of the phenomena that I thought was very interesting as I became more publicly associated with deconstruction is the amount of people who had deconstructed their religious beliefs, but still had a hard time deconstructing other superstitious beliefs. And to be absolutely fair, a part of that is what I like to call personal exceptionalism. You know, sometimes we take for granted, our own experiences, and how they shape the way we approach things. And so we're just overwhelmed by like why other people didn't do the same thing. And so for me, that kind of comes to play because me deconstructing my religious superstition it was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's not just that I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God, ghosts, goblins, goons, or any of that. And so, but again, and y'all have heard me say this, over and over again, a major part of my deconstruction journey and my deconversion wasn't from the posture of they lied to me. It was from the posture of I don't have a dependably methodological way for believing. In other words, I believe bullshit. That's the way I said it. And so I said, that's something that I have to fix within me. And so it was no mystery for me then to realize like, oh yeah, this is probably not the only thing you believe that's not true. There's probably a bunch of things you believe. And so I say this to say, and this is going to lead me straight into how knowing better begins with asking better questions. A lot of times, especially when I first started doing content, a lot of the questions I would get was, like, oh man, you did such a good job at this. Now, how do you explain ghosts? Or now, how do you explain NDEs? Or now, how do you explain when my aunt got this prophetic word and it really lined up with everything he said? And so what I begin to realize is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You can absolutely use the same tools you use to deconstruct religion to deconstruct other areas. But I was noticing that it was like people were like resetting kind of like back to zero. So it's like, yes, I know this is why the Bible is not true. I know this is why the idea of a God is not very likely. But now I'm really stumped on whether or not unicorns exist. And I'm like, whoa, it's the same problem. And so when people would begin to reach out to me with stuff like that, I'd start to, my response was, and I think people thought I was being funny because I think people think these things don't exist. And I was like, I think your best bet would be to take some courses in critical thinking. And there are some free courses in critical thinking. I think like even crash courses on YouTube, I think they have like a whole section on critical thinking. Because again, what's the title of today's conversation? Knowing better begins with asking better questions, not just hearing better responses. And that's often what happens is, and that's something that I'm not very flattered by. Like if you think I'm telling the truth because it sounded good to you, not because it actually answered questions, then that's not really helpful, you know? And so I just noticed that people kind of leapfrog from one bad belief to another bad belief to another bad belief. And it's just like, oh man, no, the same tools you use to deconstruct your religious related bad beliefs, you can use that to deconstruct your relationship bad beliefs. You can use that to deconstruct your financial bad beliefs. No, you can find all the places in your life where you've believed something without reason. And so that was the thing for me. Like, oh yeah, once I realized like, ooh, I never had a good reason to believe in a God, I kind of jumped the gun there. So if someone comes up and says, well, Darante, well, what do you think about ghosts then? Well, it's the same situation. I never had a good reason. The same type of evidence I had for God is the same type of evidence I had for ghosts, all anecdotal, stuff seeing out your peripheral of your eye when the light's off and stuff like that. And so it's just like, oh no, none of this is dependable for the very same reasons. And so that's always fascinated me. So I do in all of my content, I try to drop in or seed in information about how these things, how believing in religious superstition long term. And when I say long term, I'm not just talking about one person. I'm talking about generationally, because we have generationally been exposed to religious superstition, right? Like it's like you're born into a family who was born into a family who were born into families who were born into families that have in some way, form, or fashion uh align themselves with religious superstition. There are implications. There are societal implications and psychological implications. So that's why I try to seed as much of that into my work as possible, so that people begin to realize, like, no, it's a high probability that I'm operating in some type of imposter syndrome. No, it is a high possibility that I am overestimating my skill in an area, my understanding in an area. No, it's likely because of the religious superstition of the that is so permeated the culture that I've been a part of. Like I've not been immune, and it's like that's how sometimes people that's sometimes how we behave, how we respond when we just wake up. You just wake up, and then all of a sudden you think you wake up and you immune from everything. And it's like, no, you just woke up. You should probably figure out, how did you stay asleep this long? you know and that was kind of my thing, was like, dude, why did it take me so long? And for me, it was interesting, why did it take me so long to get back to who I was when I was this young curious person trying to figure out the world? Why did it take me so long to get back there? And then that's when I started really paying attention to borrowed certainty and borrowed confidence, and really how we live in a society that will pressure you to believe things. It's not just religious stuff, but they'll pressure you to believe things based off of relational credit. Damn, that's good. Okay, let me say that again. Like, we live in a society that will pressure you to believe things based off of relational credit. And don't even got to be religious stuff. Like, no, you should believe this is a good idea because you love me. And it's like, whoa. Like, one of these things is not like the other. you know. I can love you and still not believe this is credible. I can love you and still not have enough information to come to the same conclusion that you're coming to about a certain thing. But we live in a society where it is absolutely normal to pressure people to believe something based off of relational credit. You should believe it just because I'm me. And if you don't believe it just because I'm me, then there must be something wrong with the relationship. So, like, no. If you live in a society like that for generations, like you're a part of a society that's been exposed to stuff like that for generations, it is going to impact the way you make your decisions. It's going to impact the way you believe things. And so like it's now getting to that place of recognizing that, I need to learn how to think, you know. And so I got this little article that came in, and I told you I got no notes. I got no notes. I got this article, and then I do have a website of resources that I want to introduce y'all to. But I received this article from I think it's an organization called Stand Together. They emailed me. I got like a lot of people that email me stuff. I sign up for a lot of stuff, and then sometimes I think other people are signing me up for stuff too. It'd be so weird. But anyway, I got this one and I decided to take a look at it. And the name of the article was 5 Questions That Can Solve America's Political Polarization. And I thought, that's a topic I'm interested in. And it's not even just America's polarization, nor is it just political polarization, but I'm always interested in ways that we can have more conversations without polarization. Now, y'all know I've been very clear about trying to call out the difference between skepticism and cynicism, and trying to call out the difference between building community and building a culture of grievance. And so grievance culture will always create polarization, you know, where there's an in group, there's an out group, there's us, there's them, and it's not just us versus them, but us and them are at the most extreme odds possible. So if you are not us, you are horrible, you know, type of thing. If you're not us, you're not pure, type of thing. And so I'm always interested in, okay, so what are these people's takes? So they give us 5 questions that can solve America's political polarization problem. And I want us to kind of workshop these questions together. And there's one quote that they have that I do want to read before we get into the questions. And it says, and this is something that I've talked about before, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. It says there's a disconnect between what people are being told by forces in the media and what's actually going on in the minds of Americans. And I do want to read that again because I just want to, like, I feel like I could have wrote those words myself. And again, this is an article on from an organization called Stand Together, and you can literally get to their website by standtogether.org. You can get to their stories by standtogether.org/stories. But there's a disconnect between what people are being told by forces in the media and what's actually going on in the mind of Americans. Now, that's something to me that I don't know why, but I just think that's obviously true. To me, that's an apparent truth that what you see in the media is going to be an exaggeration of many times a subset, right? But what happens when you start treating your neighbors like the people that you see in the media? Um, so this is basically the kind of thing that we get to is if we're going to do better, we have to know better, right? But if we're going to know better, then knowing better starts with asking better questions. So we got to ask better in order to know better, and then we got to know better in order to do better. And right now, what the person the person who's being quoted in this article here is saying we have a knowledge problem because there's a disconnect between what we're seeing on television and what we're experiencing in life, or what we're actually what we're experiencing in life. And so that's an interesting thing. So I want to get into some of these questions, and I did actually take the time and run these up. So I'm gonna drop these on the screen one by one. But the first question is, am I just having my views questioned, or am I being told what to think? All right, so this is a question, and in the context of this article, this is a question that can help us deal with polarization. And in our context, we're not just going to be talking about religious polarization. We're not just talking about political polarization, just whatever it is that's going on. Because, like, the work that we do at Bridge City, the whole idea is to help people connect better so that we can build better, so that we can live better. But connecting better starts with better conversations, better relationships, and really knowing how to orient while we're in conversations, right? So when you are having a conversation, and this is according to standtogether.org. I probably should have saw the article, the author of the article, but according to the author of this article, one of a good starting place to ask is, am I just having my views questioned, or am I being told what to think? Why do you think that's an important question to ask? Why do you think that's an important question to start with? I think it's an important question to start with because it is a question that determines your posture, how you're going to be in the conversation. Because sometimes it is possible, and I'm not saying you do this all the time. I'm not saying we do this all the time, but I'm saying it is possible to enter a conversation prematurely defensive. It's possible, right? Like it's at least possible that sometimes I can read the cues wrong and be in the conversation in defensive mode because I think I'm being told what to think. And in all actuality, I, the only thing that's happened is I'm just having my views questioned. Mm. And can I handle having my views questioned? See, this is what helps us create posture for the conversation. Yeah. Being asked to that's right. It's the difference being asked for your reasoning and being asked to submit and then ask for your submission. Well, no. Are they asking because they want me to change my mind? That's good. Or are they asking because they're sincerely curious about my mind? Because I do want us to be open to curiosity. Okay, okay. So watch this. Now, I'm not saying we do this. I'm not saying we guilty of it. I'm just saying it's possible. Is it possible that there's a small fraction of people who want to know who want to know for good reasons? Is it possible that there's a small fraction of people who are engaging with conversation because they're curious, because they want to know more about the worldview you represent, the lifestyle you represent, the belief system you don't represent? Is it possible? And if it's there, then maybe I should have this question at the forefront of all the type of conversations I'm having, just to make sure if there is somebody showing up in good faith, I'm open for it. So this is a good posture question. Is this a conversation where I am just having my views questioned? Is this just a survey? Or am I being told what to think? Am I being told that I need to submit to their worldview? Am I being told that what I think is wrong? You know? And it's that, ooh, man. It's that God's eye view syndrome that a lot of people have. Like I'm not really one of those people who likes to dedicate time telling other people what they're wrong about. Like I really don't. It's just like, oh no, I'm more interested in creating content for people who are looking for it. Whether they still believe and they're looking for it, or they're in the middle of no longer believing and they're looking for it, or they stopped believing a long time ago and they're looking for language for it, or they never believed and they're curious about it. But I'm not really interested in telling people what they're doing that is wrong, unless it is something that is demonstrably harmful. I'm just like, oh, okay, unless they have opened up their lives to me, and this is a good lesson here. Unless they've opened up themselves to me for that type of relationship, which is very weird to me. That a lot of people are just always kind of going at other folk, and I'm like, oh, do y'all have that relationship? um and it's okay. It's okay to wait for permission to give people advice. I feel like that's somebody's moment, right? It's okay to wait for somebody's permission to give them advice. Have you ever thought about that before? That it's probably a good practice to wait for somebody to ask you for advice before you give it if you're not in relationship with them. Man, I hope this is helping. Okay, so listen, am I just having my views questioned or am I being told what to think? And again, I like this one because I think it's a posture question. It lets me know, um, is this a question of openness? Is this a situation of honesty? Is this a situation of inquiry? Or is this an intimidation tactic? Is this person trying to, I like the word submission. Is this person trying to intimidate me into submission? And I do want to read a little bit that they have from the article. It says remaining open to fair debate is essential for fostering productive disagreement. Oh, I think that's a term that we don't hear a lot. Productive disagreement. What do you think of when you think of productive disagreement? What do you think of when you think of productive disagreement? There are a lot of disagreements I refuse to have. Again, like I just said, when someone like I'm not always going around looking for when people are wrong, so I can tell them, "Hey, you're wrong about that." I'm more interested in productive disagreement. Okay, which means that which means that on the other side of this disagreement, win or lose, on the other side of this disagreement, we both can get something out of it that makes us better. So remaining open to fair debate is essential for fostering productive disagreement that helps us both learn more about each other, which again, that's the question. If I'm being questioned, we're learning more. We're learning more. Oh man. Or just someone to listen. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, I have to do the same thing because I go into Mr. Fix It mode. And I'm like, you kind of got to tell me because otherwise I'm asking like, why are you telling me this? Then? But no. And so while being told what to think is very much a source of polarization, having our views questioned is actually a healthy part of democratic discourse. All right. And that is something that I think we should all learn how to get more comfortable with. And I think the more we're questioning our views, the more we're comfortable with others doing the same. I think the more solid we are in our views, the more comfortable we are with people questioning them. And it's okay. It's okay not to be solid in your views. That's all the more reason to want to invite questions. That's all the more reason to invite questions. I'll use Dark Light for an example. Dark Light goes on to every show that he can, trying to get people to challenge his different beliefs, and he's using that to refine and update and go back around what he believes. And so it's for him, it's not. It doesn't seem to be, hey, I just want to antagonize you and I want you to have my belief system. It's no, I want to open up my belief system to as much critique as possible so I can figure out where I want to stand with it. And that's we do need more conversations that are um very much so rooted in curiosity and inquiry, you know. Um, so I love this first one as a posture question. Am I just having my views questioned, or am I being told what to think? Now I like the second one because the second one kind of goes to the quote that I pulled from it in the beginning. Is what the media is saying aligned with my experience in the world? All right. Now, this is a very different question than how it sounds. All right. Is what the media is saying aligned with my experience in the world? No, what the question is not saying, it's not saying is what the media is saying is true. It's not saying is what the media saying is false. It is saying, is what the media is saying aligned with my experience of the world? That is another layer of questioning we have to have when living in a information age, when living in a media technology type of age. It's not just is it true, it's not just is it false, it's also is it staying aligned with my experience in my experience in the world. Okay. All right. Now, why is that important? All right. So let's look at that. It can be true and aligned with my experience in the world. And then that gives me a strong proximity of relationship to the truthiness of the situation. But it can also be true and not aligned with my experiences in the world, which means there is a gap that I need to close before I just jump on the bandwagon. Right? No, it may be true. You remember the conversation we had about conspiracy theories? The thing about a conspiracy theory is the theory itself could possibly be true. It could, but the conspiracy theorist hasn't done the work to determine if it is. Like it could, in the sense of Schrodinger's cat, could be true, could not be true until someone does all of the follow through work and all of the evidence. You won't know. So it's the same way. Like what the media is saying could be true, but the question of does it align with my experience in the world is not a question of its truthfulness. It's a question of my proximity to the ability to determine its truthfulness. Ugh, this is good. So it's like, no, if it does not align with my experience in the world, doesn't mean it's not true. What it does mean it's not true for where I am. And that could be for a lot of reasons. It could not be true for where I am. So for example, let's play with it a little bit. If the media says, hey, racism is at an all-time high, and then you say, well, okay, well, Darante said to ask, is what the media is saying aligned with my experience in the world? And you say, well, you know what? From my experience in the world, it doesn't seem to have changed at all. But it's like you're a middle-aged white dude living in a white neighborhood. Of course, it wouldn't be changing too much for you. You're not the impacted demographic. So again, it's not a question of truthfulness. It's a question of proximity. So if the first one was a question of posture, I'm just pulling these out now. If the first one was a question of posture, this is a question of proximity. Am I close enough to what media is talking about to be able to not even take media's word for it? Am I close enough to what the media is talking about to be able to draw a rational conclusion? And if it's not aligned with my experience in the world, the answer is no. I'm not close enough to it to draw a rational conclusion of that. The media has now given me awareness of something that could possibly be true, but I still have the responsibility to close the gap and determine if it is true or not. You see? So is what the media is saying, is it aligned with my experience in the world? You know? Oh, yes. Oh man. See, I have some stories from my protester days that made that a real question for me. Yes. Like it'll sneak up on you. It'll sneak up on you. And you'll be sitting there like, wait a minute, wait a minute. And then it's like the first time I watched Rosewood, I was mad at every white person I saw after I saw that movie. The movie, not the show. The show was different. I don't know why they did a show called Rosewood that wasn't about Rosewood. But anyway, but no, is what the media is saying aligned with my experience in the world? And what that encourages us to do is to go back and get experience. I hate this saying, but people say it. It reminds us to get out and touch grass. You know, it reminds us that there is a proximity gap. There is a proximity gap between me and anything I see on television. There's a proximity gap between me and anything I see on YouTube. There's a proximity gap between me and anything I see on social media. And so, regardless of how triggered I may become when I see something, I must remember, like, oh, yeah, that's the point. That's the point. It's like it's a little thing that I kind of do it myself. Anytime like I'm dealing with a salesperson, and like especially a salesperson who's really good, and you know the salesperson they're talking and they're running a thing, and you're like, man, I really I really think I should buy this. And then in my mind, I remember, oh yeah, like that's the point. Like that's the whole point of the conversation. The whole point of the conversation is to get you to feel like you should buy this. That's the incentive from their end. Okay. That's the response that they're trying to get from you. Right. Not saying I'm not attaching any positive or negative values to that. I'm just saying that's the reality. So, like, if you're at the dealership and the salesperson makes you really excited about buying the car, it's not because God really wanted you to buy the car, it's because the salesperson knew how to do their job. And so that's the same thing with the news, or whether it's news, social media, whether it's YouTube, whether it's your favorite content creator. When something is done that evokes such a strong emotion, just sort of remember, oh yeah, that's the point. That's the point. Like we do jump scares in movies because that's the point. You know, we build up the music when the shark is coming because that's the point. It's not a mystery. It's not a secret. It's not a dark, clouded cabal of people making these like we all know this is public information right now. And so the media knows, and I don't even want to try to make the media just sounds like ultra bad. I'm moving all of that from it. But media knows how to get ratings, you know? Like we know what clickbait is because we fall for it. That's why it's bait, you know? We know what rage bait is because it's effective, right? But at some point, we have to remember, or at least like we really need to, we really need to remember that, like, hey, I'm in control of the programming. We're in control of the programming. And so I need to know, like, I need to be mindful that, yeah, this is getting a strong reaction from me because it's supposed to. Let me still read this objectively. And then some, like, sometimes I've read news articles and been like, why did they title it like that? And then you'll realize, especially on social media, and then you'll realize there's a large percentage of people who are not even reading the article. They're just reading the headline and going straight to the comments. And it's like, yeah, there are people who know this, and like it's like, well, they should stop doing that. Maybe I don't know, but what I think that what they've ultimately submitted to is that you can't really control people for the most part. You know, you just got to follow what they want. Oh man. So is what the media is saying, is it aligned with my experience in the world? If everything you're learning about the real world is coming through social media, that might be a reason why you're so angry all the time. I mean, like this has been a concern of mine for a while that if we keep hyper focusing on the worst on the worst possible subsegments of culture, if we keep focusing on them and we keep popularizing them and we keep normalizing them, then what's the incentive for not being that? You know, like there's so many people who don't exist on those extremes, and we need to find them. And in most cases, those people are your neighbors. They're the people at your local Costco or Aldi's or Sam's or Publix or Walmart or Winn-Dixie or Piggly Wiggly or IGA. I'm trying to get as many of Bruno's. I'm trying to get as many of Food World, Kmart. Try to get as many of them out as I could. Target is technically a grocery store now, you know? So there's all these different there you have if your number one way of connecting with others becomes what the media tells you other people are, then like I'm gonna challenge you a little bit. How then is the media any different from religious authority? Because religious authority was like it told you who were the good guys, who were the bad guys, gave you your whys, and it made everything a shortcut for you. And many times I think we're using media. Yes, yes, I like that. They aren't really that big at all. No. Um, and so it's remembering like, no, let's get back connected to the people who are around us, right? Let's build real relationships, and let's that's the only way. Like we have to hold the media accountable to reality. And the way we do that is with our attention. Oh, snap. You know, it really has. It's been on the same trellis. Does Walmart do groceries in the US, or is it just that? No, Walmart does do groceries here. It's like it's its number one crop. Can I say it that way? But yes. So, all right. So number 3. Let me get number 3. And we're flowing with these. All right. What relationship agreements do people assume too often without discussing? That's another question. And I I like all of these. I like all of these, but man, actually, no, that's a wrong question. That's from NSFW. How did that get stuck in there? So that's from Sunday. If you missed Sunday, go back and watch it. You can do that. All right, here it is. Is this a conversation where I'm learning or where I'm debating? Yes. Okay. Now we're somewhere. Is this a conversation where I'm learning, or is it a conversation where I'm debating? Right. And now this is one of the reasons why like I don't debate Christians. Like I'm like, it's there is one side of arrogance, right? Like there's nothing for me to learn there. Like there's nothing for me to learn. But there's also the question of interest too. Like I'm just not interested in that. Not for real, for real. Like I don't want to go back down that rabbit hole. So I already know in that conversation there I'm not going to be interested in learning, right? So that becomes a really fair question because it kind of takes us back to posture again. It's, is this a conversation where I'm learning or where I'm debating? And if it's a conversation where I'm going to be debating, like, oh, like it needs to be something like, mm, I don't debate. Oh, this is good. I'm not debating just because I think my position is true. Okay. I'm only open to debate if I believe your position is possibly true too. You know? Like if I don't believe your position is possibly true, then I'm not even in that, you know? All right. So is this a conversation where I'm learning? By complaining that all the men I grew up with seen every conversation as a debate, we're trying to win. But that is true. Like, oh my goodness. I do feel that there's so many conversations where people get so attached to their ideas, or it's just like my idea has to dominate the room. And I'm like, no, I can watch this. I can learn from somebody else's idea without agreeing with their idea, without adopting their idea, without absorbing their idea. I can understand the spirit of somebody else's idea without agreeing with the conclusion of their idea. But like what often keeps me what I call safe and sane is that I remember that other people don't need my agreement for their conclusions. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to realize. Like when you grew up in that colonizer mentality, like you want to just colonize everybody. And it's like, hey, you see that idea that you have? Don't mind if I just come over there and colonize it. Like it's like, hey, you got an idea that is not my idea. You should only have my ideas. Let me go over there and turn your idea into my idea. And I'm like, hey, that's not a healthy way to engage people. That's not all right. So is this a conversation? Right. Instead or to fight, man. Is this a conversation where I'm learning, or is it a conversation where I'm debating? Right. And this is about helping to kind of decrease polarization. If I'm not learning, why am I in the conversation? If I'm not even open to learning, why am I in the conversation? And that's something like we're really good at pointing that out in others, but we also have to be able to point that out in ourselves. Like, sometimes you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself the question, am I being the troll? Am I the one that's trolling people this time around? Is that what's going on? You know, am I in this conversation to learn, or am I really just trying to debate? You know, am I learning something from this conversation, or is someone just trying to debate me? You know, I love it. All right, question number four. Question number four, and this is the question that most people don't make it to. And this not being able to make it this question is highly symptomatic of being in a polarized uh, culture, right? How can we have a conversation that focuses on the thing we have in common rather than the things that divide us? Mm. In a polarized context, the only thing that matters are the things that divide us. In a polarized context, the only thing that matters are the things that divide us. And the things that divide us get bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger. And then they have more performative purity tests. And eventually, for me, this is just me. And maybe this is because I'm not optimistic enough, but we end up advocating for a world that doesn't exist and a world that we haven't built and a world that we're not trying to build. And that's a world where the only people who are allowed to be alive are the people who think like we do. And I'm like, I don't understand how that doesn't sound like fascism to people. Like every time I hear it, I'm just like, oh, so you're okay with fascism as long as it's against the people you don't like. And I think that the challenge of humanism is trying to find ways to focus on the things that we have in common rather than the things that divide us. you know but we also have to deal with the fact, and this is a truism. We also have to deal with the fact of avoiding the hard conversations haven't helped either, though. And so this isn't necessarily about avoiding the hard conversations. It's about prioritizing the productive ones. Like earlier when I said it's okay to get permission before you give advice, right? It's okay to think in advance whether a conversation is going to move you forward or backwards. It's okay to kind of run that math in advance. It's like I call it time traveling. Just go ahead and travel to the future. Time is not a straight line. It's like a whole bunch of paths. So go to a few different future timelines. See how all the different ways this conversation can play out, and see if there's enough of them that play out in a way that you'd want them to play out for you to feel comfortable moving forward in that conversation. Yes, I think it helps when you're not trying to win every conversation. Knee-jerk competition complicates understanding so much. It does. It does. I've watched that. I wrote a book years ago. I did not publish it. I probably should have, but it's called The Conversationalist. Um, but it was really, the goal was to highlight how to reclaim the art of conversations. Because one of the things I realized is that people don't, in a lot of contexts, people aren't having real conversations. It's more like popcorn, you know. And what I mean when I say popcorn is just it's like somebody says something, and everybody's waiting for something said to trigger something for them, whether it's related or not. It's just popcorn. And so someone says, yeah, I went to the beach this weekend and had a great time. This weekend we was gonna go to the movies, but we decided not to. And somebody said, well, last week we saw the Michael Jackson movie and it was pretty good. And then somebody else says, I don't really like Michael Jackson them. And then somebody else says, well, the Barges them, they were pretty dope too. And after a while, like, you don't actually have a conversation. There's not enough friction. There's not enough activity. It's just popcorn. It's just people randomly popping off ideas until somebody else pops off another idea, and it keeps going on. And I realized, like, oh, snap, people don't know how to talk to each other anymore. And I realize it's because conversations require questions. All right. What's the name of the topic? Knowing better begins with asking better questions. Like, oh man. Knowing better begins with asking better questions. Like, what am I? No, if next time you hanging out with a group of people that you call your friends, count how many questions get asked when you're in open conversation. If no questions are getting asked, it's likely not a real conversation. You're likely not actually getting to know each other. You're likely not that interested in each other, or even worse, you're indifferent to each other. You're just there to have the popcorn interaction with, so that you don't feel like you're bored. I hope I'm not depressing anybody. Because real conversations require push and pull. They require feedback. They require inquiry. Nobody really understands everything you're saying when you say it. There got to be some questions, because you ever notice, like, the way you say it in your head and the way you hear it in your head is not the way other people experience it. Like, when you say it in your head and you hear it out your mouth, it sounds like a complete sentence. It sounds like a complete idea, but you have like trillions of data back and forth that was going on before that sentence actually made it there, that the people on the other side have no insight into. All right. And so at some point, like, there has to be some questions. That's a red flag for me in conversations with people, is if we're talking for longer than 30 minutes and no questions have been posed, then something's wrong. Like, this is not a conversation of genuine interest. All right, because interest is a knowledge issue, right? Like, I'm interested in this. When interest is a knowledge issue, if I'm interested in something, that means I want to know more. All right, what's the vehicle for knowing more? Asking. All right. All right. So if I'm on a conversation with somebody for over 30 minutes and there's been no questions asked, then this isn't an interest situation. This is something else. All right. So, dang it, how did I get there? Foundational standard of the language. How can we have a conversation that focuses on the things that we have in common rather than the things that divide us? And a lot of times that goes back to the label thing that I talked about, like the exercise I used to do with my kids. What is this? It's a rug. No, that's what we call it. What is it? It's a carpet. No, that's what we call it. What is it? What do you mean? You tell me. Look at, what is it? Well, it's some plastic. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. It's some glue. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. It's some threads. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. But the whole point was, sometimes we argue over the label without getting to the substance. So maybe the thing that we disagree about religion, right? We disagree about that. And just because I've watched a few YouTube videos doesn't qualify me to be your I don't know, your executioner, the executioner of your faith, you know? So we may disagree about religion, but what's the bigger issue that we're fighting about? And if the bigger issue, or at least one of the bigger issues that we're fighting about is human rights, then let's shift the conversation from religion, something we disagree on, to human rights, something we can possibly agree on. And like, and this ain't stuff that you got to just pull out of a vacuum. I consistently urge people to study the what we'll call the Black Power movement as opposed to the Black suffering movement. Most people have studied the Black suffering movement, and even it they didn't study very well. I call it the Black suffering movement. You call it the civil rights movement. But if you study those movements from the people who lived them, you'll come to realize, like, oh yeah, these are hard lessons that these people learned themselves, that these people wrote about in their books and their memoirs. Is you have to actually do the hard work of fighting for the things that actually matter, that actually count, and unifying people around those things. So it's like, yeah, I can debate you about the religion, but what I really want to know is, where do you stand on human rights? You know, it's finding those things. And that's the thing. We don't do those things because they're hard. That's the bottom line. Okay, if you want to know why you believe bullshit for so long, because it's easy. We do things that are easily. That's why they're easy. No. So the habit that we have, is that we tend to stay away from things that are hard. Well, that just takes too much work. Right. That takes too much effort. Yes. So what you're realizing when we say stuff like that, when we say, oh no, that just takes too much work, that just takes too much effort, we're now answering the question of, how does bad things continue to happen? Because when good people have the opportunity, the answer is, well, that just takes too much work. Well, that's just too inconvenient. Man. No. When we want to do harmful things, nobody's wondering about convenience. hmm When we're mad at the world and we want to burn it down, nobody's concerned about the amount of energy that it takes. But when you actually want to heal the world, when you actually want to build bridges, when you actually want to build institutions that reclaim those things that we let go, when you actually want, that's just too much work. That's too much effort. When you want to say, hey, I know it's easy to fuss over the things that we don't agree about, but to do so is to assume that there is any possibility of there being a world where we're going to agree on everything. And I said, that's where I'm like, I'm not that optimist yet. I don't think, oh, this is probably going to break some people's heart. I don't think racism is going to disappear within the next 10, 20 years. I don't think so. I don't. No. I don't think misogyny is going to disappear in the next 10, 20 years. Oh, it will be nice. But I don't think so. So I'm not surprised when I come across people who have very unfortunate ideas. I've studied history. I know what the playing field looks like. All right. But the question is, how do we shift from being shocked about what has always been, and how do we actually create or cultivate environments and cultures where something new can finally begin to grow? Well, see, that's the hard work. How can we have conversations that focus on the things that we have in common rather than the things that divide us? Which means someone has to be doing the work to figure out, what is it that we have in common? There has to be, like, I get it. there's probably not gonna be there's probably not gonna be 100 things that we all have in common. I get it. I get it. There's probably not gonna be, 150, 200. No, I get it. But there's probably at least 10 things that all of humanity has in common. You know? Like we don't always have to wait to the end of a war. We don't always have to wait till the casualties mount up to say, "Hey, you know what? I think there was a better way for us to handle our differences." We can time travel. We can say, "You know what? No, we can do that in advance." But knowing better begins with asking better questions. And I think we just found one of those questions within this question. One of the better questions to ask is, what are the things that we have in common? Somebody needs to keep a list of all of the things we have in common. And they need to keep it updated in real time, like when they fall off. Like, all right, 100% of all humans share this thing in common. Oh, 5% of humans now disagree with this, so that's off the list. I want to see that as a sociologist. I actually do want to see that, you know. But it's looking for it on purpose. On purpose. Oh man. Because again, number one, this is the spark of how you have real conversations, and that's what we got to get back to as a species, as a as a social species. We have to be very careful about what's happening to our conversations, you know. And then, like, I'm convinced that half of y'all ain't even talking to people. That is bots. And y'all are just having full blown, and I'm not talking about your little private chat GPT time when you're doing your journal and your diary. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, there are bots in comments, there are bots in pages, and sometimes you think you are going toe to toe with a real person, and this is a bot that's just there to keep you engaged. And while that part is unfortunate, what's even more unfortunate is your interaction with this bot is feeding your understanding of humans because you don't know it's a bot. And so it's a bot that's gaslighting you into thinking the worst about other humans. And I'm not saying there's not a lot of bad things to think about other humans. Trust me, as an African in America, I know there's a lot of bad things to think about other humans, like, period. But when you get to a place where, again, where you're defining your worldview of humanity by your media interactions, and if your media interactions are all algorithm based bots, and in most cases they won't all be, but after a while, the bots start shaping the ecosystem of culture. So they don't all have to be bots. It can be 25% of them just being bots, but they are now dominating the conversation. And so you just get a rage culture where everybody's arguing at each other online. And then we begin to think that's an appropriate way to respond to people in real life. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Man. So how can we have a conversation that focuses on things that we have in common rather than the things that divide us? So if religion divides us, why is that always going to be the guiding part of the conversation? Instead of treating religion like the rug, find the things in the conversation, find the things in the rug. Maybe it's the glue, that's the problem. Maybe it's the plastic, that's the problem. Maybe it's the threads or the color of the threads. Find that thing. But that takes a lot of work. It does. It does. The other option is to continue to lose. That's the other option. Um, you know? All right, which brings us to question 5. And this is the hard one. But this is the one that kind of brings it all home. What assumptions am I making about the other side? I can tell you probably one of the biggest assumptions most people are making about the other side, and that is that the person they're talking to is on the other side. You know, like that's the weird thing about the whole idea of other sides is that it invokes this false binary that only exists in your worldview. Because everybody's worldview is not the same. We don't have the same shared worldview. So watch this. Your us versus them is likely not your neighbor's us versus them. And your neighbor's us versus them is likely not their spouse's us versus them. And their spouse's us versus them is likely not their children's us versus them. So, what assumptions am I making about the other person based on the side that I've associated them with? See, these are harder questions because then they do that thing that we don't like to do. They hold us responsible for our judgments. So, what assumptions? And when we say assumptions, it means like, what information do I not actually know, but I am behaving as if I do? Yeah. What questions haven't, what questions have I not actually asked, but I'm behaving like I have the answers to? Because that's what we do with labels, right? And that's why I said the assumption we make about the other side is that they're on the other side. And so the moment I assign you to the other side, in many cases, I'm also assigning you to all of the worst things of that side without ever asking you. And it's not saying, watch this, I'm not saying it might not be true. That person might be all of those worst things. But the question is, am I assuming it or am I asking it? Because knowing better, and that should be the goal, is knowing better should begin with asking better questions. Now, I want to know, is this, you know, ask that tough question. Did you vote for this person because you don't like Black people? Ask the question. Take it into the conversation with you. You know, you might be surprised at your answer. They might say, well, exactly. That's exactly why I voted for him. Well, now you know. Now you know. And do with that information what thou wilt. But the big point is, what assumptions am I making about the other person? And watch this. This isn't about this isn't about protecting your enemies or anything like that. This is about this is about knowing better by asking better questions. What assumptions am I making about the other side? All right. So let's run through these again real quick. So we got them. Am I just having my views question, or am I being told what to think? This is a question of posture. If I'm just having my views question, it's safe so far, right? So if I'm just having my views question, I don't have to get into defense mode. If I'm being told what to think, I can just exit the conversation. You know, every invitation doesn't deserve a response. That's real. Is what the media is saying aligned with my experience in the world? And remember, what the media is saying could be absolutely true. The question of if it's aligned with your experience is not about whether or not it's true. It's about whether or not you're close enough to determine that it's true. You know, um, and so the responsibility becomes to close that gap. Um, Number three, did I click it? I didn't. I thought I did. Yep. Is this a conversation where I am learning or where I'm debating? If every conversation you're oh if every conversation you enter into, you're entering into that conversation to debate, my question would be, when do you have conversations to learn? You know, that's why, like, I hmm, that's why I don't spend too much time in the debate community, you know, because after a while, it's like there's a lot of things to learn about in this world. I am more interested in conversations where I can learn something. I don't just want to laugh at the other people. I want to learn something. I think people thought that was so funny of me, but I was like, I don't enjoy talking to believers about their faith. It is not fun for me. If you go back and watch old videos of me on the line, you can see like I am like, this is what are we doing? What are we doing? You know, it's not fun for me. Why? Because I like to learn. I want to learn something. I want to learn something. All right, number 4, how can we have a conversation that focuses on things that we have in common rather than the things that divide us? And then number 5, what assumptions am I making about the other side? You know, and I think that's a fair question to lead with in almost any conversation that you're having with anybody. What assumptions am I making about the other side? What assumptions am I making about the person that I'm having this conversation with? And to replace every assumption with a question. To be honest about your assumptions. Hey, these are the assumptions I'm operating off of. You know, my dad and brother would argue that being man enough to admit when you've lost a debate is a good way to learn. I am not mad at that. I am not like I'm one of those people that losing doesn't bother me, right? Like, and to be clear, I used to throw tantrums when I lost. Like when I was a kid, like I throw tantrums. But it's not because losing bothered me. It's because I thought that's what the way people wanted me to respond. Losing doesn't bother me at all. I'm actually fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by when I thought like, oh, this was gonna go and it didn't. It's almost like playing basketball and you shoot, and like as soon as it rolls off your finger, you're like, that's about to go off. I can feel it off my pinky. It's about to go off, you know. But like, no, I'm fascinated. Like I don't want to lose over and over again. I don't want to lose my money and stuff like that. I don't know that. But I don't mind losing because I love learning. And actually, like when you're playing video games, the more comfortable you get with losing, the better you get with playing. Like my cousins used to like beat my ass in 007 and all that stuff. And I'm just wondering, like, how did they get so good? And what I realized later on is because they didn't mind dying over and over again. Like they like, and after a while, you die so many times, you realize, oh, this dude shoot this way every time. And then if you just count to 3 and then you can run, it's like, oh no, I didn't learn that lesson because I was so afraid, you know. But no, so I love it. I want to share this website with you real quick because I did tell you I want to share some resources. Because a lot of times I'll tell people when they ask me for advice about um, well, Durante, I no longer believe this, but I still have trouble believing this, or I still have trouble not believing this. And for me, like, well, it's the same type of things. And so this website, which first I'm gonna show you their rules of civil conversation, and I'll show you the other resources. But this website here is sponsored by the School of Thought, schoolofthought.org. And if you've never checked them out, please do give them a check. You see my mouse right here, that's them. I'll show their website in a few. But what they have on their website, and this is something that I like everybody to check out. When we have like Bridge City physical campuses, like I want to do a lot of work with the schoolofthought.org because I really love what they're bringing to the table. But this is what they call the rules of civil conversation. And it's just something that I think is such a refreshing reminder, It says, number one, I resolve to try and reach a shared understanding rather than win the argument. Number two, I resolve to clarify with others to make sure I genuinely understand their perspective. Number three, I endeavor to avoid committing logical fallacies in support of my claims. Number four, I resolve to attempt to account for my own biases and try to be intellectually humble. Number five, I resolve to try to be reasonable, rational, and create coherent arguments. Number six, I resolve to refrain from personal attacks, sarcasm, and mean spiritedness. Number seven, I resolve to use the principle of charity to see the merits of other points of view in the best light. And number eight, I I resolve to remain genuinely receptive to changing my mind if presented with compelling argument or evidence. I think that like when Bridge City starts doing more, because like right now we're building out our small talks, our connection circles, and other types of small groups. And I think for our ones that will have more debate style content, I think I want this to be at the forefront of all of their conversations. That hey, I want let's make sure we look at the rules of civil conversation. So if you've never heard of that before, it's a great little just checklist to kind of keep you reminded by. But then there's also, and I'll share my page over here, share this tab instead. Now, this is the schoolofthought.org. This is their primary website. And I just want to be the first to say, as a neurospicy person, that building is badass. I love everything about it. I would not be mad if a Bridge City campus looked like that. That is so dope. That's like, I don't know. That's just me nerding out a little bit, but I likes what I likes, and I likes that. That's dope. Oh, it's just so dope. I got to stop looking at it because I'm gonna get stuck. But so this is their website. And I guess I should tell you about them a little bit, right? The School of Thought International is a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting critical thinking, reason, and understanding. Our free resources, published under Creative Commons licenses, have reached over 30 million people in 7 languages. We believe that in order to rise to the challenges of the 21st century, we need to teach the next generation how to think rather than what to think. And that we can do so by using world-class design, code and creative making it freely available for everyone. I read that wrong somehow. And I do like this little quote: give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a child to think, and she'll grow up to enact legislation that saves our resources for future generations. Yes, I like all of that. But so these are things they have. Like they have Off of Here is sponsored. It's a little creative page you can go to where you can see logical fallacies and stuff. Let me see. They got a little
ambitious.
Can y'all hear
to
that?
Save the world from itself by popularizing critical thinking, reason, and understanding. So far, the School of Thought's free Creative Commons resources have reached over 30 million people worldwide. So while this goal may be ambitious, it isn't entirely unrealistic. In fact, it's amazing what you can achieve if you dream big. Celebrities might even agree to do the voiceover for your video. The big idea was to use high-quality design, creative, and code to make
Awesome.
critical thinking resources freely available for everyone under Creative Commons licenses. You can find out more at schoolofthought.org.
So yeah, this is it's a really cool website. They've started a conspiracy test, like it's a little cheesy game, but it's fun. But they have this thing, which I may visit this website. Let me see how many. Yeah, great. So this is their logical fallacies. They have a website where you can go through each of these icons. Each icon represents a logical fallacy, and it basically turns over like a flip card. And then of course you can actually get these posters from them as well, but that has the fallacies listed out. And this is the thing that I've shared. It's beautiful to be able to recognize when someone is using a logical fallacy in an argument, but that's one way to use that information, and that's not the best way to use that information. The best way to use this information is to be able to identify when we are committing logical fallacies. Is to identify when we are operating in our biases, because that takes us back to the polarization question, or the polarization conversation. There are things we're pretending to know about people that we don't know, that are most cases based off of our own logical fallacies and based off of our biases that media narratives know how to take advantage of. And so not only do we have this like political hotbed of misinformation, but then like people are leaving religion and finding more and more bullshit, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. There's a new cult of the week, and people are falling into new beliefs because we're doing a great job of tearing down each individual one as they pop up, but we're not doing a great job of giving people the tools, to actually recognize what we're doing wrong, um, and that's why I love resources like this, is because that's my biggest advice to people, is when they're like, okay, what do I do when I'm deconstructing? I love YouTube content. I make YouTube content, and that's helpful for a season. But what you really need is you need some content on critical thinking. You need some content on reasoning, and like, yeah, this is good, because this is the more pragmatic, this is the more practical space that we need to be in. And what happens is sometimes we go to the academic or the philosophical extremes, so you become you become academically astute of all things Bible, but you still haven't been able to course correct the things in you that made you vulnerable to believing it, or you become like super duper philosophical, involved in metaphysics and all types of ideas of transcendence and stuff, but you're still separated from the logical fallacies that you're committing to get there. And so it becomes so much better when you can actually start saying, what's the toolkit that I didn't have that made me susceptible to religious belief? And if I can get that toolkit, and of course, I'm not talking like, now I sound like a TBN preacher. I'm about to sell you your prayer toolkit. So I'm not talking about an actual physical toolkit, but it's finding out what are the tools, and the tools are critical thinking. It's critical inquiry. And so I should have had crash course prepared to share it, really. Yeah, it's not nearly as much fun, right? Yeah. Whole new world for you from the ground up. Yes. And so it's finding those things. And like, I know what I did for my family. I took these and turned them into a Kahoot game, you know, so that we can play around with them and finding those ways. And as you see, Stephen Fry is a supporter. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Yes. And that's I don't know if you notice, like sometimes when I do Q&As, I don't like questions where someone's asking me for just asking me, for an answer. Like don't ask me Google questions. I hate to be asked Google questions because to me it's a posture issue. Ask me a question that's going to lead to a new question you can ask. But like people say, like, okay, how do you build a community? So that's a Google question. You can ask Google that. There's enough information out there where you can ask Google. But education is the learning of facts. Or education is not the learning of facts. Don't ask me to just replace a thought in your mind. Oh yeah, I found it fun. I found it way more fun once they finally started coming together. Getting to that point, however, is aggravating. It's frustrating. It's like coming out of the cave, which I forgot what the cave was. I was about to call it the Cave of Shadows, but I think that's from Aladdin. But see, they also have for your biases. For which biases are you operating off of? And it's the same type of structure. They have the cards, and these are the tools. Like to me, more than oh, is that Pinker? That is to me more than any videos I can put out, and they got them on the posters. More than any videos I can put out, you know, about deconstruction content. All of that's going to be helpful, yes, as a point of reference, right? It's going to be helpful as a point of reference. Um, it's going to be helpful with language. It's going to be helpful with interpretation. But if you're looking for something to say, I don't want to fall into the trap of misinformation anymore. I don't want to fall into the trap of indoctrination anymore. I don't want to fall into the trap of believing bullshit anymore. Then where you start is not with the new guru. It's not with the new influencer. It's not with the new content creator. It's not with the new academic hero. It's not with the new philosopher. Where you start is with the basic building blocks of critical thinking and a resistance to what I call borrowed certainty, which means if I don't know, I'm not going to act like I know. I'm not going to pretend I know just because, like, and someone else can say, but no, there is plenty of good reason to know, or there's plenty of good reason to believe this. Good reason to believe is not the same as good reason to know, because apparently good reason to believe can be anything, but I'm not doing the borrowed certainty. So it's so good to start getting those, biases and your own fallacies, getting an understanding of those yourself. So I'm gonna click on the website just so you see, And so this is what this website looks like. I'm gonna biggie size this a little bit, y'all. So okay, yeah. And so it's very interactive. Like this isn't a game or anything, but it's just something if you want a quick way to start learning. Actually, Bridge City may do something like this for our generations teams, for our students and stuff. But strawman, misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to attack. False calls, presuming that a real or perceived relationship between things means that one is the cause of the other. Appeal to emotion, manipulating an emotional response in place of a valid or a compelling argument. So I mean, like, there's a bunch of them. Just going back to straw man, like misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to attack. All right, so there was a situation that happened, and the claim was that the person that the situation revolves around had not asked anybody to get involved. The claim was that this person has specifically told everybody to stay out of it and specifically asked for nobody to get involved. And the claim was that the people who were blowing the whistle, or the whistleblowers about the incident, were operating against this person's wishes, right? So this person goes and has a letter notarized. And it's like a 10-page letter, and they have it notarized, and they start sending it, and they have their sister to send it out to people. Well, the same people who made the claim, and I'm showing you just how straw mans could work even outside of religion, the same people who made the claim was that they're operating in this person's, they're operating against this person's wishes. After this person goes and gets a letter notarized, they create a straw man around the notary by saying, They showed you this notarized letter, but a notary doesn't have the ability to say that all of the facts are true. But that was never the argument. The argument was not that whether the facts were true or not. The argument was this person consenting to people operating on their behalf? And a notary, what they do notarize, what they do validate, is that the person who is in front of them and the person who is signing is that person indeed. All right. So people do straw mans all the time. But again, it's not a flex to be able to recognize in other people and not recognize it in ourselves. Oh, I love that. See, great minds, great minds. It's a really helpful site, and I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a millennial that this just kind of speaks my language. But it's a really helpful site. And for those of you who have a budget, they also have the critical thinking cards that you can get. And they have little workshop stuff. So I know, like, when we start doing leadership retreats with our team for Bridge City, because I want to invest in our leaders like crazily. But when we start doing leadership retreats, I want to use a lot of their resources and some of their resources, and not just theirs. Listen, the point of this is to demonstrate that there are resources out here. Because number one, critical thinking is something that's available to every human being. Okay, it's available. So there are resources out here. There are people who share our vision. There are people who share our mission. And so this doesn't have to be as uphill of a battle as we think. We have an incredible toolkit. You got Curse Kazat, you have Crash Course, which if any of you who ever want a better understanding of why I kind of show up in the world the way that I do, Crash Courses, their series on sociology is magnifique. It probably does you'll say, okay, this is why Darante just very nuanced person, just very nuanced, but sociology will do that to you. I think sociology has been the missing science. It's been the one ring that rules them all. It's definitely the thing for me that put the final nail in the coffin for religious superstition. It was just like, oh yeah, so you had anthropology that did its part, you had geology that did its part, you had astrology that did its part, and of course you even had biology, especially evolutionary biology, that did its part. And then sociology comes in at the turn of the century and just like, oh yeah, this is it. But not only, and yeah, Crash Course is awesome. Yes, I'm closing down too. Thank you so much for being here, Jude. But yeah, like sociology came, and not just sociology, like, oh man, like there's so many books on the sociology of religion, but you can read by Emil Durkheim, The Elementary Principles of Religion, is really good. I said that title wrong, but there's so many books on it that now we know how religion evolved. We know how we became a religiously superstitious species, but not only do we know that, we know how much of it was human. And the answer to that is all of it. So sociology is not only effectively closing that door, but it's opening new doors for pathways forward. And to me, that's exciting. All right, but that's all I have for today. I just wanted to show y'all that. Please check out those resources if you haven't already. Crash Course, Curse Kazat, schoolofthought.org, the rules of civil conversation. These are all great resources to have, because the idea is not just to be better at recognizing religious misinformation, but it's getting better at asking better questions, knowing better information so that we can do better things. Ask better questions, know better information, do better things. And at the end of the day, that's the goal. So I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. Until next time, y'all.
here too. So happy to be with you. Glad that you made it through. I saw that you made it through. I'm happy to be here. I'm finally living with no fear. I'm living my best year. So glad I didn't give up in last year. I'm happy that you're here too. So happy to be with you. So glad that you made it through. I saw that you made it through. I don't know if you hear it enough, but I want you to know that this song is about you. I'm saying you're more than enough. If you looked at yourself, you would be fucking proud of you. Get that weight off your chest, let it go, let it flow. Let it roll off your shoulders. Don't be scared to be loud, to be proud, to be bold, to be more than they told ya. It's like jumping out of airplanes and swimming with the sharks. The existential feeling when you're staring at the stars. There's a hurricane in my head, but the lightning in my heart makes it worth it. Yeah, I still get nervous when you drop in the stream and you check out this life is. Yeah, it feels like the very first time I can deal with you forever. I am certain, yeah, cause I still get nervous when we all get the point in the fireworks blasting and sparks through the air like the 4th of July. I can deal with you forever, I am certain, yeah, cause I still get nervous. So happy to be here. I'm finally living with no fear. I'm living my best year. So glad I didn't give up in last year. I'm happy that you're here too. So happy to be with you. Glad that you made it through. I saw that you made it through. I don't know if you hear it enough, but I want you to know that this song is about you. I'm saying you're more than enough. If you looked at yourself, you would be fucking proud of you. Get that weight off your chest, let it go, let it flow. Let it roll off your shoulders. Don't be scared to be loud, to be proud, to be bold, to be more than they told you. It's like flying in the fast lane, no headlights in the dark. That existential feeling makes you wonder who you are. There's a wild wind in my head, but the butterflies in my heart makes it worth it. Cause I still get nervous when you drop in the stream and you check out this life. And yeah, it feels like the very first time I can be with you forever. I am certain, yeah. Cause I still get nervous when we all get the point and the fireworks flashing and sparks through the air like the 4th of July. I can deal with you forever, I am certain, yeah. Cause I still get nervous. Hey! Cause I still get nervous. 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 We all get the point in the fireworks flashing and sparks through the air like the 4th of July. Cause I still get nervous when you drop in the stream and you check out this life and it feels, yeah, it feels like the very first time.